You have likely walked past the love of your life without ever knowing it. We live in a world where we are obsessed with words, texts, and verbal confirmations, yet the deepest, most primal cries of desire are entirely silent. There is a profound tragedy in missing the signal, in standing right in front of a woman who is screaming, through the silent language of her body, that she craves you, only for you to remain deaf to it because you were waiting for her to speak. This creates a disconnect, a loneliness that permeates modern dating. We are here to bridge that gap. By the end of this presentation, you will no longer be blind to the hidden architecture of desire. You will understand not just where she touches, but why her subconscious is driving her hand to that specific spot. This is about decoding the human need for connection. If you want to master this silent language and never miss a genuine opportunity for love again, you need to commit to this journey with us. Subscribe now, not for us, but for your future self who deserves to understand the truth behind the signals. Let us begin. To understand why a woman touches a specific spot when she is attracted to you, we must first strip away the myths of pickup artistry and look at the raw neuroscience. Touch is not merely a physical sensation, it is the first language we learn. Long before an infant can see clearly or understand a word, it understands touch. When a woman is experiencing high levels of attraction, her brain is flooded with a cocktail of dopamine, the anticipation molecule, and norepinephrine, the excitement molecule. However, there is a conflict. Society conditions women to be guarded. Evolution conditions women to be selective. This creates a high-pressure internal environment, which Esther Perel often describes as the tension between security and adventure. She wants to maintain her safety, security, but her biology is screaming for connection, adventure. This internal pressure must be released. Since she often cannot say, "I want you" outright due to social conditioning, her subconscious mind leaks this desire through self-soothing behaviors or displacement activities. When she touches specific spots on her own body while looking at you, she is essentially touching you by proxy. She is stimulating her own nerve endings to calm the excitement your presence generates. The most potent, high-stakes signal in the psychology of attraction is the manipulation of the neck, specifically the suprasternal notch, the hollow dip between the collarbones. In evolutionary psychology, the neck is the most vulnerable part of the human body. It houses the jugular vein and the carotid artery. In the wild, exposing the neck is a sign of ultimate submission or trust. It is saying, "I trust you not to hurt me." When a woman is speaking to you and her fingers drift up to lightly trace her collarbone or play with a necklace resting in that hollow of her throat, she is engaging in a behavior rooted in ventral vagal activation. The vagus nerve connects the brain to the heart and gut. When she feels a rush of attraction, her heart rate spikes. Subconsciously, she touches this area to soothe that racing heart, but simultaneously, she is drawing your eyes to her most vulnerable point. Esther Perel suggests that desire thrives in the space between the self and the other, in the unknown. When she touches her neck, she is inviting you into that unknown. She is exposing her fragility. If you see her fingertips grazing the side of her neck or playing with the small hairs at the nape of her neck while maintaining eye contact, this is not an itch. This is a biological billboard. She is unconsciously signaling that she feels safe enough to be vulnerable, yet excited enough to need soothing. The contrast is key. If she is looking away and covering her neck with her palm, that is defensive. If she is looking at you and exposing the neck with her fingers, that is an invitation. Moving down from the neck, we encounter a signal that is often missed because it is so subtle, the exposure and touching of the inner wrist. Historically and biologically, the inner wrist is an area of high blood flow and sensitive skin. It is where we check for life, the pulse. In the context of attraction, the wrist flash is a gesture of surrender. When a woman is guarded or uninterested, her hands tend to be closed, or her palms face down or towards her own body. This is a closed circuit of body language. However, when attraction builds, the body wants to open the circuit to the partner. You will notice that while laughing at your joke, she might touch her own inner wrist, or perhaps roll her wrist outward, exposing the pale, soft skin of the forearm. Why does she touch this spot? It relates to pheromonal distinctiveness. While humans aren't as scent-driven as other mammals, the pulse points are where our body heat radiates the strongest, diffusing our natural scent. By touching or rubbing her wrists, she is subconsciously warming the skin and wafting her pheromones toward you. It is a primitive, biological attempt to chemically capture your attention. Furthermore, if she is wearing a watch or a bracelet and she begins to fiddle with it, spinning it around her wrist, pay attention to the speed. Slow, deliberate twisting indicates a sensual, languid comfort. She is savoring the moment. Fast, jerky fidgeting indicates anxiety, which could be good, nervous attraction, or bad, discomfort, depending on her eye contact. The lips are the most visibly erotic zone of the face, but the way she touches them dictates the psychological reality. We are not talking about the cliché of biting the lip, which can be forced. We are talking about the digital tactile stimulation of the lips. The lips have a disproportionately large representation in the somatosensory cortex of the brain. They are packed with nerve endings. When a woman looks at you and her finger traces her lower lip, or she taps her lips with a pen or a straw, her brain is engaging in anticipatory simulation. Neuroscience tells us that the brain has difficulty distinguishing between a vivid imagination and reality. When she touches her lips while focusing on you, her brain is subconsciously simulating what it would feel like if you were touching her lips. She is physically enacting a fantasy that is occurring in her mind in real time. This is often accompanied by a dilation of the pupils. Esther Perel often discusses the concept of erotic intelligence, the ability to keep desire alive through imagination. When a woman touches her lips in your presence, she is demonstrating a high level of immediate erotic intelligence. She is bridging the gap between the social situation, talking to you, and the sexual reality, wanting to kiss you. Watch for the triangle gaze. If she touches her lips, then looks at your eyes, then drops her gaze to your lips, and then back to her own touch, the circuit is complete. She has verbally remained silent, but physically, she has shouted her intent. We move now to the most common, yet most misinterpreted signal: hair manipulation. In the study of nonverbal communication, this falls under the category of preening gestures. In the animal kingdom, a bird smooths its feathers, or a cat grooms its fur when a potential mate is present. This is biologically hardwired. However, the human application is more complex. You must distinguish between nervous grooming and invitational preening. If she grabs a chunk of hair and pulls it tight or looks at split ends, she is disengaged or anxious in a negative way. But if she runs her fingers through her hair, lifting the weight of it off her neck and shoulders, she is engaging in a phatic signal of availability. By lifting the hair, she releases the scent trapped in the hair follicles, shampoos, perfumes, and natural pheromones, dispersing them into your shared space. Furthermore, pay close attention to the ear tuck. When she tucks her hair behind her ear while listening to you, it is a subconscious move to remove any physical barrier between her auditory sense and your voice. She is clearing the channel. It also exposes the jawline and the side of the neck, vulnerable zones we discussed earlier. Esther Perel speaks about the importance of being seen. When a woman frames her face with her hands by pushing her hair back, she is essentially presenting herself to you, subconsciously saying, "Look at me without obstruction." She is framing her face as the object of your desire. One of the most fascinating aspects of attraction psychology is object transference. When the tension of desire becomes too high to act upon directly because of social propriety or fear of rejection, the brain transfers that tactile urge onto inanimate objects. This is why a dinner date is a goldmine for behavioral analysis. Watch how she interacts with the objects in her immediate vicinity, her wine glass, a straw, or even her necklace. If she begins to stroke the stem of a wine glass in a slow, vertical motion, do not dismiss this as boredom. In psychoanalytic theory, this is a displacement activity. Her fingers are craving the sensation of touch, specifically, touching you. But since she cannot, she projects that desire onto the object. Observe the texture of her touch. Is she picking at the label of a beer bottle? That suggests anxiety or frustration. Is she smoothing the condensation on a cold glass or running her finger around the rim in circles? That is sensual. She is exploring texture and sensation. It is a way of self-soothing the arousal she feels. If she moves an object, like a salt shaker or a menu, that is sitting between you and moves it to the side. She is removing barriers. She is clearing the physical space to allow for an emotional collision. She is opening the path for you to enter her personal space. While we can control our facial expressions because we know people look at our faces, we rarely consciously control our legs. This makes the lower body the most honest narrator of the scene. In proxemics, the study of human use of space, the knees act as a compass. We point our knees toward what we desire or where we want to go. If she is sitting with her legs crossed, analyze the direction of the top leg. If the top leg is crossed away from you, creating a barrier of thigh and shin between your body and hers, this is a defensive posture. It is a closed position. However, if the top leg is crossed towards you, leaving her torso and pelvic area open to your direction, this is a high-interest signal. There is a specific high-potency variant of this known as the shoe play. If she crosses her legs and begins to dangle her shoe off her heel, letting it hang by her toes, she is signaling extreme relaxation and a subtle form of undressing. The foot is semi-naked. The shoe is loose. In many cultures and psychological frameworks, the foot is a highly private part of the body. To half remove a shoe in your presence is to lower a significant formal guard. It suggests she is not planning to run, she is planning to stay. It introduces a level of domestic comfort into a public or semi-public interaction. Finally, in this section, we must address the accidental touch. You are sitting side by side, or walking together, and her arm accidentally brushes yours. Or perhaps her knee touches yours under the table. A novice ignores this. A master of psychology understands proprioceptive calibration. Proprioception is the body's ability to sense its location in space. Adults rarely bump into things by accident unless they are intoxicated. Her brain knows exactly where you are. When she initiates a light graze, knee to knee, shoulder to shoulder, she is testing the circuit. She is checking your reaction. If you flinch or move away, she registers rejection. If you hold your ground or lean into it, you validate the connection. This is the physical manifestation of Perel's dance of intimacy. It is a question asked without words. Is this space between us shared, or is it divided? If she lingers, if the knee touches and stays touching, she has made the decision that the space is shared. We now descend deeper, moving from physical touch to physiological synchronization. This phenomenon is scientifically known as the chameleon effect, rooted in the activation of mirror neurons in the brain. When a woman is deeply attracted to you, her individual ego begins to soften, and she subconsciously seeks to align her biological rhythms with yours. This is not merely copying your movements, it is a desperate biological attempt to establish limbic resonance. Observe her posture and tempo. If you lean forward, does she follow within seconds? If you take a sip of your drink, does she instinctively reach for hers? This is not a conscious decision. Her brain is signaling that you are the leader of the interaction, and she is harmonizing with your state. However, the most profound and rarely discussed form of mirroring is respiratory entrainment. This requires keen observation. Watch the rise and fall of her chest or shoulders. In moments of high attraction and deep rapport, her breathing pattern will often synchronize with yours. You breathe in, she breathes in. This is the somatic definition of being on the same wavelength. It indicates that her autonomic nervous system is tuning itself to your frequency to maximize connection. The ocular betrayal, pupillometry, and the soft gaze. The eyes are the only part of the brain that is visible from the outside. While a woman can control her smile or her hands, she cannot control her pupils. This brings us to the science of pupillometry. When the brain detects something stimulating, whether it is a threat or a mate, the sympathetic nervous system triggers the expansion of the pupils. This allows more light to enter the eye, processing the target with higher fidelity. If you are in a dimly lit environment, pupils naturally dilate. But if you are in a well-lit room and her pupils are expanded, consuming the color of her irises, her brain is flooding with dopamine. This is often accompanied by what psychologists call the soft gaze. A hard stare is used for analyzing data or assessing threats. A soft gaze relaxes the muscles around the eyes, the orbicularis oculi. It signals that she is not analyzing you, she is absorbing you. Esther Perel notes that looking at someone is observation, but seeing into someone is intimacy. The soft gaze is the physical mechanism of letting you in. Watch for the scanning pattern. If her eyes dart around the room, she is looking for an escape, low attraction. If her eyes trace the features of your face, eyes to nose to mouth and back to eyes, she is memorizing your topography. Paralinguistics. The auditory shift, attraction alters the physics of the voice. We often focus entirely on the content of the conversation, missing the paralinguistics, the pitch, tone, and speed of the voice. Research in evolutionary psychology indicates that when a woman speaks to a man she is attracted to, her voice often undergoes a specific transformation. It becomes slightly higher in pitch initially, to signal youth and femininity, but then drops into a lower, breathier register as comfort is established. This breathy quality is significant. It creates a sense of intimacy and secrecy. By removing the sharp edges of her voice, she is signaling a lack of aggression and a state of vulnerability. It is the vocal equivalent of exposing the neck. Furthermore, pay attention to the fluency of her speech. Paradoxically, high attraction can cause a temporary drop in cognitive fluency. If she is typically articulate, but starts stumbling over words, losing her train of thought, or using filler words like or ah more frequently in your presence, her cognitive resources are being diverted. Her brain is so occupied with managing the emotional and physiological arousal of your presence that the language centers, Broca's area, are momentarily compromised. She is literally becoming tongue-tied because of you. Proxemics, the invasion of personal space. Edward T. Hall, the anthropologist who founded the study of proxemics, defined specific zones of distance: the social zone, 4 to 12 feet, the personal zone, 1.5 to 4 feet, and the intimate zone, 0 to 18 inches. Attraction is the relentless drive to collapse these zones. A woman who is indifferent will strictly maintain the personal zone. She will not lean in. However, a woman harboring secret desire will constantly test the boundaries of the intimate zone. Watch for the lean in. This is not just about hearing you better, it is a gravitational pull. When you speak, does she lean her upper body across the table? Does she tilt her head forward? This reduces the physical distance between your faces, inviting a potential escalation. But the most critical signal here is blocking. If a third party tries to join the conversation or enters the space, observe her reaction. Does she open up the circle to include them, polite, social, or does she subtly shift her body to block them out, maintaining the exclusive line of sight with you? If she gates the interaction to keep it a dyad, just the two of you, she is protecting the intimacy of the moment. She is fighting for the isolation required for romance to bloom. Script: The Psychology of Attraction. Part 4. The Paradox of Active Ignoring, the Strategic Disinterest. We arrive now at the most counterintuitive sector of attraction psychology. The signals that look like rejection, but are actually signs of high-value interest. The average man sees a woman ignoring him and retreats. The observant man looks closer to distinguish between apathy and active ignoring. Apathy is the true opposite of love. If a woman is apathetic, you do not exist in her world. She looks through you. Her body language is limp and neutral. However, the active ignoring requires energy. It is a deliberate effort. If you are in a group setting and she engages enthusiastically with everyone except you, avoiding eye contact with you specifically, turning her shoulders slightly away from you specifically, this is not indifference. This is hyper-awareness. She is overwhelmed by your presence. Her amygdala is processing you as a high-stakes target, and her defense mechanism is to create artificial distance to regain control. She ignores you because she cannot handle the intensity of treating you casually. Watch her peripheral vision. Even while talking to someone else, is her body stiff? Is she acutely aware of your movements? If you stand up to leave, does her conversation falter? This cold shoulder is often a shield for a burning interest. She is waiting for you to bridge the gap, testing your confidence to see if you are easily discouraged. The shit test mechanism, teasing as screening. In evolutionary psychology, female selection strategy often involves screening for competence and emotional stability. This manifests in modern dating as teasing, mocking, or what is colloquially known as a shit test. If she agrees with everything you say, she may be polite, but she is likely bored or placating you. However, if she challenges you, mocks your taste in music, or playfully insults your shirt, she is engaging in provocative testing. She is poking the bear to see if it flinches. She wants to know, is this man secure in himself? Will he crumble if I push him? Or will he laugh it off and hold his frame? Esther Perel discusses the need for friction to create heat. A relationship without friction has no spark. When she teases you, she is manufacturing friction. The key indicator here is the post-tease micro-expression. After she delivers a jab or a challenge, watch her face immediately. Does she suppress a smile? Do her eyes sparkle with anticipation? She is looking for banter, not a fight. She wants you to push back. This is a form of intellectual foreplay. She is signaling that she views you as an equal or a superior who is worth challenging. Anxiety masquerading as aggression. Attraction is a stressor. It floods the body with cortisol, stress, alongside dopamine, pleasure. For some women, particularly those with an avoidant attachment style, this influx of anxiety feels dangerous. They do not get giggly, they get sharp. You might perceive her as being bitchy or argumentative. She might disagree with you intensely on a trivial topic. Do not mistake this for dislike. Dislike is usually accompanied by a desire to end the interaction and leave. If she is arguing with you but staying in your space, prolonging the interaction, and keeping the energy high, this is arousal transfer. She is feeling intense emotional arousal and doesn't know how to process it, so it channels into debate or argumentative tension. The volume and intensity are the giveaways. If she didn't care, she wouldn't waste the calories arguing. She is fighting the attraction, and you are the target of that internal conflict. Your job is to remain the calm center of her storm. If you remain unbothered by her sharpness, her anxiety calms, and that energy often flips almost instantly from aggression to intense desire. The pre-departure check, the anchor glance. Finally, in this section of counterintuitive signals, we must analyze the pre-departure check. This occurs when the interaction is seemingly over. Perhaps she is leaving the party, or walking to the bathroom, or you are parting ways. An uninterested woman leaves. She walks away, her eyes focused on her destination. A woman who is craving you will almost invariably perform a check back. She will walk a few paces and then turn her head, ostensibly to look at a friend or check her phone or scan the room, but her eyes will sweep over you. This is the anchor glance. She is checking to see if you are watching her leave. It is a final bid for validation. She wants to know that her exit has impacted you. If you catch her eye in this moment, do not look away. Hold the gaze. This confirms to her that the connection remains unbroken even as physical distance increases. It leaves the narrative of the interaction open-ended, ensuring that you are what she thinks about when she gets home. As we near the conclusion of our analysis, we must discuss the catalyst that often forces hidden attraction into the light: jealousy, or in psychological terms, competitive tension. Esther Perel famously notes that jealousy is essential to love. It serves as a reminder of the partner's value. Watch her reaction when you mention another woman, or when another woman enters the immediate environment. This is the triangulation test. A woman who views you merely as a friend will react with neutrality or supportive curiosity. A woman who secretly craves you will display micro-expressions of disdain or sudden withdrawal. Does her mood shift instantly? Does she become quiet? Or conversely, does she become louder and more territorial, physically moving closer to you? This is mate guarding. Evolution has wired her to protect a potential investment. If she starts pointing out flaws in the other woman or tries to redirect your attention aggressively back to herself, she is fighting for her position. She is signaling that she perceives a threat to a connection she hasn't even verbally admitted to yet. This possessiveness is the shadow side of desire. Temporal extension, the shift from I to we. The final cognitive shift that confirms deep attraction is future projection. Casual interest lives in the present moment. Deep desire seeks to colonize the future. Listen carefully to her grammar. Does she shift from using singular pronouns, I am going, you should go, to plural pronouns, we should try that, let's go there? This is temporal extension. Her brain is subconsciously simulating a future timeline that includes you. If she mentions an event happening 2 weeks or a month from now and implies your presence, she has already psychologically accepted you into her inner circle of safety. She is not just enjoying the conversation, she is investing in the continuity of the relationship. This is the strongest indicator of safety. She feels safe enough to plan and excited enough to want you in those plans. The synthesis. From observation to action, we have spent this hour dissecting the silent language of the female subconscious, from the suprasternal notch to the pupil dilation, from the shoe play to the vocal shifts. But knowledge without action is merely trivia. The question remains, what do you do with this data? You do not exploit it. You do not use it to manipulate. You use it to bridge the gap of loneliness. The tragedy we spoke of at the beginning, the two people missing each other in the dark, ends here. When you see her touch her neck, when you see the soft gaze, when you feel the accidental touch linger, you have been given a key. She is waiting for you to turn it. She has signaled safety and desire. It is now your responsibility to lead. The final verdict: do not wait for a written invitation. Attraction is not a contract. It is a dance of ambiguity. If she touches that spot, her neck, her lips, her wrist, she is screaming in silence. She is craving the friction, the connection, and the tension that only you can provide. You now have the eyes to see what others miss. The world is full of signals. Stop looking at your phone, stop listening to your doubts, and start reading the reality in front of you. The signal has been sent. The only variable left is your move.